energy is low, right? Good morning once again. Lovely, lovely to have all of you around. And I am Colonel Vineet. I am the Director, National COA with DSCI, and welcome you on behalf of the team SkyBox and Data Security Council of India to this AISS. And as the day starts, I think this is one of the first workshops that you have chosen to attend. I'm sure that you'll not be disappointed. Why you'll not be disappointed? Because the topic is pretty apt. As you read on the slide, continuous exposure management. But before I do that, let me first introduce you to the two gentlemen who are going to deliver this talk. Mr. Aftab Saeed, who's the country manager of SkyBox, and Dibyajyoti Guha, who's the technical director and leads the India and SAARC region. So Aftab comes with a 2 decade of experience, and not only in one sector, but multiple sectors, BFSI, pharma, telecom, and he's worked with companies like Tenable, British Telecom, and so many other verticals that he's handled, that he understands the strategy, he understands how to build business from ground up. He understands how to put up things and stitch them together. So with a lot of his experience, I'm sure that this session, we are all going to benefit from what he has to offer. And while Dibyajyoti handles the technical lead with around 16 plus years of service experience of handling security, and he is the one who's responsible for the framing the technical architecture of the solutions. And he's very good at that. That's what I've been made to understand. I'm sure that the way he's going to deliver his talk is going to benefit all of us. So what is this thing going to be about? In military parlance, if I give you, there is one concept that is often discussed when we discuss the enemy, and here the enemy is an attacker. And that concept which is discussed is often called OODA loop. Have you heard of OODA loop? So OODA loop is a concept which is called observe, orient, decide and act, which means you have to have the visibility first. So how do you get the visibility? How do you discover the assets in your entire ecosystem that you have? Once you have the assets, how do you finally orient yourself? You need to do some analytics, right? So which means that a lot of data analytics has to go into it. At the same time, how do you finally identify the low-hanging fruits which the attacker could actually exploit? And finally, you need to have that in the entire visibility. To manage your poster, you have to decide to act as to what all actions should you take. To cover all these dimensions, from the military parlance to actual, when it comes to actually defending our network, which is actually same business, though it's moving from the battlefield to the, I would say, the cyber field. So I'll now invite Mr. Aftab Saeed, who's the country manager SkyBox, to take on the stage and just take us through the journey as to what SkyBox has to offer to us. Thank you, Aftab, over to you.
Thank you so much for the invite. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining. We have been honored to have you, everybody here. You had your breakfast? Fantastic. Morning I hit my lip when I was doing gym. I didn't realize that it'll go so quickly that it'll hit me. And I'm talking about a risk today. I couldn't cover my risk. So, so this is something you find it in your organization every day, right? You don't see something risky and it happens with you. We are in that business. My name is Aftab Saeed and मैं कहानियाँ सुनाता हूँ. I don't like to give a very corporate rich presentations. I do want to speak something which can relate with your day to day. Perhaps I'm looking that as my retirement plan, but then that's a good thing. Who all like to hear stories? Lovely. Yeah, just have a good room full. Everyone loves stories, right? You must have heard from mother, father, siblings. You have kids, you have spoken to them. Wife tells stories. Husband tells stories to wife, right? Fantastic time to have. So what we are going to do is, the essence, what we are going to talk today is the 4 steps of continuous exposure management. Absolutely, we'll stick to the graph and the line of our subject today. But we'll try to take you through some pictures, through quick, easy questions which you can answer, like guess my age if my brother's age is 4 years younger than me. Such an easy one. You can guess my age now. So those kind of easy questions will be asked. Answer that, enjoy the session. I'll start with this couple of slides. It will be a kind of opening one to give you some thought process, what is going to come forward. And my colleague Dibyajyoti Guha, who's the technical director, he leads the pre-sales team in SkyBox here. He will start with his technical discussions. It will be more pointed towards what we do from a product perspective. He will then move towards a demonstration, which will give you an idea that whatever we have heard from the presentation. And finally, I'll give you a view on what was implemented in the field and what was the benefit. So this time we have tried to uh, create ourselves a bit of out of way to show you rather than just give you a corporate presentation. So pardon me if it is going here and there, but I'm sure you're going to like it. Do you believe? Now this is something a very, very important question. Do you believe in yourself? Raise your hand. There are so many things in ourselves, right? Right from virtues, values that our parent has given. We believe that we are going in an organization helping everyone. We're doing our justice to that organization. We are clearly knowing that whatever we are doing today in the field is going to help the organization. And then of course it helps my family, our parent, our teacher, our student in some or the other way. It's very important that we believe, and that belief is something that takes off every day that we move forward. And that's so strong thing, right? Something very easy. Should you sleep facing the mirror? Do you believe? If you believe, yes, raise the hand. If you don't believe, no problem. There is no right and wrong answer, it's just a matter of belief. So clearly nobody believes it. Very nice. This is interesting. Right? Do you believe? Yeah, absolutely. So I have a car. Somebody tied that. And there is a story about 7 chilies and lemon. We'll talk some other day. It's a very detailed one. Somebody hanged it and went. He's saying, sir, kuch nahi hua. Aage gaya, it just banged it. But it was nothing to do with that. But yes, right? Risk and compliance is considered a burden or organization operations. Do you believe? I'm liking the audience. It will help time to, if vulnerabilities are prioritized to identify today's risk. Do you believe? Yes. Why I've said today's risk is as we go forward, you'll know. So there will be some bold letters which will help you throughout the session to relate, okay? CISOs are looking to identify the business risk and not just asset vulnerability. Do you believe? Yes. Now, as I said, it will be all new pictures. Very common thing, especially in Mumbai, I have seen it. My one car got stolen, just like that. This car must be a BMW or a Mercedes, and for this, owner would have kept 3 watchmen, a nice built garage with an automated alarm system, mobilizer, a geofencing, which means if car goes beyond a kilometer, car gets off. And this nice gentleman with hood comes and puts a scale, opens the car and takes it. And it's actually happened with me, so I'm so confidently telling you this. My car was stolen, okay? What happened? We spent so much of money, right? 1 crore of car and then another crore of security just to safeguard. There was a very small vulnerability on the window, which if it had fixed, probably that there was no need for such an expense, right? So are we overspending in our organization? This is the message which comes out. And it is so apt. And aaj bhi takleef hota hai, car went away. My car, it never came back. And when I saw somebody doing it, I could understand he would have done like this. So this is now data. You all know, right? Spending's increasing day by day, every year. I was just talking to Kaushik. This is ever growing because there is every new OEM coming in 3 months, 6 months time and giving something very interesting. You can't say no to it. How does an organization really think how much to attain and contain when doing a purchase? An ad hoc basis or a planned purchase over a period of time becomes so much, then there's a need to look at a fresh approach that what should we do when the spend is going again and again up, right? And that was again, there's the latest one which is 2023 when Gartner said, and it's public clouds growth which is going to bolster the expenses. That's 14% in 2024. This is that data exactly coming out from Gartner. If you see those highlighted ones, the bold ones are somewhere where we are kind of helping in some form or the other. We don't say exactly we are a cloud security company or a integrated risk management or network security, but yes, we are helping everywhere. We'll tell you how we do it. We are a vendor agnostic company. We are able to integrate with the security ecosystem that you have purchased and try to give you the benefits of whatever you have purchased and still give you the benefit out of it. So there are ways and means to do it. When our friend Devjyoti moves forward, he will present you on that. Now with this piece, the spending is going on, right? Has the risk gone down? No. The hacking gone down. That also is increasing, right? So people are spending and still the problems are still there, right? So question is, how are we solving the problem? This two picture shows that one side somebody is doing a jogging and being proactive to be healthy. Now that doesn't mean that he'll not die, but at least he'll have some health to cover. The other side, somebody is taking the pills, which is a reactive approach. And I'm sure everybody wants to do this. In a day-to-day life, when things go so tough, it becomes really difficult in day-to-day to even think. And these are the sessions where we really remind ourselves that, okay, this is something that you have to do. I don't know whether you will believe this is my report, but I could have given a photo also that I was taking out blood. I'm a donor for this. So generally when you go for a health check, you get a 300-page report, right? And you'll scan. What will you do out of it? You'll find those bold letters. Okay, this has gone bad, this has gone bad. And lately I've seen them doing this kind of dashboarding. Okay, very interesting. See that, 83 score. If a person has to be 100%, my score was 83. And there were, of course, some fatty liver, which I'm trying to go away with. But then it gives a very quick understanding of what a dashboard means, other than a 300-page report. Now, all these things that I'm going to tell you is going to come forward in our presentation, and we are going to show you why it is beneficial. A 300-page report is not going to help anywhere. One, you will not be able to read it also properly. Second, you are not the expert to find out what to do. If you go to a doctor, perhaps he'll help you, right? He's an SME, right? If you have this dashboard, at least you will be able to corner that, okay, there is something problem with my liver. Now, because of that liver, there are some 10 other things I don't need to look at because I have just to take care of the liver. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Don't have those 10 other medicines. Something else has jacked up because of the liver. Take care of the liver and other things will take care of it. So these are something which is also that we are doing in our solutions, helping you to understand what are the risks and how to get away with that. Or do you want to cover everything? Okay? So that brings us to this question, that regardless of company size, you'll never have enough resources. And you know this. You have vulnerabilities to the tune in millions and not able to remediate. It's not possible. So can I give you a 5 or 10% of call out of those vulnerabilities which are serious risk of today? Now remember that today bold. Today's risk, if you remediate that, you are out of the risk. Then comes your compliance, which means you can then continue remediating the other 93 or 95% of the vulnerabilities, right? But then taking care of those 5% today is important because that's how the risk gets covered, okay? And this was a very old one, but very, very valid still. You know, CUS is a technical severity. We all know 7+, 10+, critical, high. What people seem to want is vulnerability of flaw poses to them. That kind of risk this vulnerability is posing, exactly that somebody is looking out for. And we are trying to help you out. How? Of course, we'll come to know. These are these 4 words which we use for quality of prioritization. All the time that I said that you prioritize and give you those 5 or 10% of the vulnerabilities, identify that. These are the 4 pillars that we use for exposure analysis, exploitability, CVSS, business asset. Look out for these words when Devjyoti speaks in his session. You will be able to relate what my picture said and what we are talking today. I wanted to open up this session so that you have a fresh thought and fresh mind rather than gulp you into my presentations. Thank you so much. Devjyoti, up to you, please. I'll join you soon after Dev Jyoti's session gets over. There are some more questions.
So thank you, Aftab, for the introduction and the stories. So I'll start with the problem that usually we are seeing today and why those prioritization is required, right? So coming to this slide, if you see, so there are four challenges that has been highlighted why we all are here and why the adversaries are ahead of us and why a requirement of a platform or a prioritization framework is required to zero down or narrow down onto the risks that you need to focus on. You cannot mitigate each and everything, but how we can reduce the time to react and time to remediate is something that we can always improve on. So increase in attack volume, obviously, we know. So there are numbers given to you, compromises happening, asset growths, we are moving to cloud, Azure, AWS, GCP, and obviously this is something that after the post-pandemic, this kind of shift has happened, the paradigm shift has happened, and obviously now we are looking at all our workloads running on the cloud, right? So most of the companies have moved to the cloud, and that is how it is going to be. Cloud expansion and obviously skills shortage, that is something that is going to be there in cybersecurity. The the uh, true skill set is something that is still lacking, and this gap will keep on increasing. That is something not I am saying, this is what the analyst says, and that is why we need to have smart enough tools which can provide you with some kind of AI interfaces where it will do the analytics on algorithms running itself and let you know that where you need to focus your efforts on. So that is where we are coming from. So talking about exposure management from to where. So what happened? So obviously we know that this was the evolution of human, and so is the process of risk-based vulnerability management and prioritization that has happened. So as you can see that vulnerability management historically was mostly on the CVSs, right? So we were looking at CVSs and some kind of threat intels that we used to look at the vulnerabilities and risk on the organization. But then with the Gartner approach that came up last year on the continuous exposure management in 2022, Gartner has obviously talked about prioritization based on a lot of aspects. Okay, then CISA came up with an SSVC approach, that is stakeholder specific vulnerability control, where they again talked about a lot of aspects that need to be automation. Okay, automate the things, look at threat intel, exploitability. Also, they talked about how a remediation can help the organization. So remediation can be in a lot of ways. It is, as I will talk more, it is not only patching that we are talking here, but there are a lot of things that can be done quickly again. How to reduce the time to react and time to remediate. So this is the four phases of the exposure management process program. This is not a tool or a product that we are talking about. We are talking about a program, a process, because cybersecurity is all about people, process, and technology. It is never about buying anything and your problem gets solved. Until you have the right people to manage it, you have the right process to maintain it. So until all of these are there, that particular investment of yours will fail. So this is something that coming from Gartner in terms of exposure management. So the first one is scoping. Okay, so that is the scoping, the phase one. When we say scoping, it is looking at the entire inventory. It is looking at the entire ecosystem. So whether it is on-prem, cloud, IT, OT, even the OT side, the ICS SCADA environment, vulnerabilities is also for the manufacturing. So that is something now everybody is thinking of, that there can be an IT OT convergence. There can be a lateral movement of a malware from the IT side to the OT side, right? So that kind of visibility for the manufacturing is also something that is looking at. The vulnerabilities are not only confined to the IT environment. Now it has moved to the OT also, and having a visibility is pretty important. So cloud, on-prem, attack surface, IT, OT, devices and applications. So SkyBox has an important play in here. SkyBox Security as a platform has an important place. So we are not a plug and play platform. Okay, so what we do is that we do integrate with your infrastructure, whether it is a firewall, whether it is switch, whether it is router, whether it is your EDRs, your cloud, AWS, Azure, the scanners, the CMDBs. So we bring in data from all of these, okay, onto the Skybox environment, and by bringing on this data, we do certain analytics. Okay, we run analytics to show the attack surface visibility, to show what can be done. So the next phases talks about that. So scoping is something that we are doing by integrating with the investments that you have already made in your infrastructure. So bringing all the data into a central platform, providing with a single pane of glass. Next is discovery, right? So what we do when we bring in all of these data, what we do is that now we do a contextualization of the data, right? So like exposure, okay, as you can see, so compliance checks. So we run compliance checks across the devices, whether it is the firewall, whether it is the network devices, in terms of PCI, NIST, CIS guidelines. So we have all of these, and we run the checks on your devices to show if there are any misconfigurations, right? So also a misconfiguration is also known as a vulnerability. It is a weakness from a configuration side. So that is something that we are highlighting. Security control gaps, right? All of these is something that we are highlighting when we are running these integrating with these kind of technology vendors. And obviously we have a threat intel feed where we have the information about the dark web. We have collaborations with more than bodies like NIST, CERT, and we bring in their intelligence also into a single pane of glass. So the most important and the third phase that is is important is the prioritization phase, right? So when we say the prioritization phase, it is the risk assessment and the risk prioritization, like how we cut down the noise. As you can see that first, the most important thing of cutting down the noise is looking at which vulnerabilities are actually the low hanging fruit for the attackers. Like even the data that you are getting from the scanners, they don't look at the network, they don't understand your firewall rules, they don't understand that how a traffic is flowing from point A to point B in your network. So that context is something that we are putting into the prioritization. And we run something called attack simulation. This is passive attack simulation within the SkyBox environment without touching your live assets. Okay, once we do that, we tell you, okay, what are the vulnerabilities that an internet attacker can exploit, okay, or maybe an internal attacker, or maybe a B2B attacker. So you can create multiple attacker profiles in the SkyBox environment and run this simulation. It is a complete passive simulation without touching your assets. We run all of this into the SkyBox environment. The third is the asset importance. Obviously, if an asset is important to your business, even a low or a medium vulnerability is something that you need to prioritize. So that is one of the angles that we are looking at depending upon the criticality of the asset to the business. Probability of getting exploited, like so obviously if there are more and more number of malwares, payloads, ransomwares that are botnets that are getting associated with that vulnerability, then we are prioritizing the vulnerability over the time. So obviously the score of the vulnerability changes depending upon the kind of vulnerabilities, kind of malwares that are getting associated with that vulnerability. For example, if a vulnerability is getting discussed on the dark web, like some kind of mal scripts is written, some kind of payload are written on for that vulnerability, automatically SkyBox prioritize that vulnerability within the infrastructure of yours, and it knows that okay, this vulnerability is something that may have an exploit kit ready in the next 48 hours. And attack simulation, as I talk about, like showing from where an attacker can come in and how that attacker can exploit that vulnerability. Next is the mobilization, the fourth phase of the continuous exposure management. So all of these four phases that are there on the slide, this is a Gartner approach, and we align to that Gartner approach of continuous exposure management. So mobilization, mitigation, and remediation again is a very important aspect, that how you can meet your SLAs when you get those vulnerabilities listed down from all of your assets. Obviously there needs to be some kind of mitigations that need to be done. So obviously patching is one of the ways of doing the mitigation, but again apart from that we give certain kind of quick guidance and recommendations, like for example if there is a firewall, so what is the IPS signature that can be enabled on the firewall, and by just enabling that IPS signature on the firewall you can actually mitigate 50 critical vulnerabilities in your infrastructure. So that kind of solutioning dashboard is something that we provide. Maybe a config check change on the firewall is something that can be done by just doing that configuration change on the firewall. Again, there can be 25 critical vulnerabilities which can be mitigated. We are not saying that the patch is not required to be deployed, but until the patch is deployed, this is a kind of compensating control that you can implement in your infrastructure until the original patch is deployed, just to protect yourself from getting exploited, right? So that is how we are looking at the entire framework of continuous exposure management, and how SkyBox aligns to the 4 different phases of continuous exposure management. Yeah. Yeah. Can you give mic? It's okay. Okay.
Every point contains a tool. So are you saying that different tools which generally available as in silo in the market, you combine all those?
We can do multiple things that like point products can do, as you said. So like compliance check. Okay, that
Okay.
is one of the things that we can do for your network devices assets. Again, we can do an attack simulation where there are breach and attack bash tools that are available. We can also do that. But again, when we say that we do attack simulation, the reason for doing us an attack simulation is to prioritize the vulnerability. The motive of doing the attack simulation is different. Again, we have a threat intel feed, which again is used to prioritize the vulnerability. So there are multiple tools that are there, but then we can do a lot of use cases. We can cover a lot of use cases. I have a slide for that, like what are the use cases that we cover by integrating. You will have better understanding when I move forward in
Okay.
terms of.
So in continuation to that, next point is
Yeah.
like for compliance check.
Yeah.
Maybe it's on CIA base,
Yes.
right? So for an example, if I run a CIA compliance check, because multiple tools are already available,
Yeah.
and I give it to the operations team, and they come back that like for AWS, I need to take this module of AWS, and this will again going to take this much cost.
Hmm.
Because from the AWS marketplace or
Yeah,
somewhere,
yeah.
they have to buy some module to
Hmm.
for an automated. So is there a way that without going, so either first I have to invest on identifying the gap, second operation team is taking some tool again for fixing it. So it's a continuous investment. So is there a way, or you also propose to remediate some these things without having those tools?
Yeah, so we don't need to have any tool from AWS, so we can directly integrate with AWS or Azure.
For remediation also?
Yeah, we don't do remediation. We don't push any changes on the AWS, Azure, or on your
It's a
assets.
halfway, no?
Yeah, so we are only doing the recommendation. Okay, so as of now, we only give recommendations because again, implementing the recommendation is something that is your. If we start doing automation of the recommendations, then there can be issues. So we have limited ourselves only to provide you with what can be done in a better way. So we are not doing any automation
So
on
that is what I'm saying. Can be done again. There is a tool
Yeah.
for an operation team too.
Very valid point. When you buy a tool, most of the time, if you go and reconsider, if there are 100 features of the tool, your organization might be using 20 to 60% or 30%, ranging that. Okay, that's a very standard way of using, because not every solution is bought from the feature list perspective, but from the use case very specific to the organization. So this war or debate will always be there, that whether I buy a tool or I get it through someone. What we are trying to do is we are trying to create a platform. Now in this platform, it will not cover 100% effectivity of everything, but those 20-30% use cases that everybody is trying to use, if we are able to bring it, the two purposes solving. One, we are giving a platform, which one solution more or less starts covering. We can't do everything, but whatever we do, your cost optimization becomes very, very effective, because I'm not giving you 100% feature list, so obviously there will be a lesser cost. The third one is an integration part. Most of the organization have today, and especially when we are talking about vulnerability patching or remediation, patch managements are robust solutions today, which most organizations are having. We will integrate, we'll try and do something around it. So these are very, very specific use cases, but I do agree what you're saying. It's a today's pain, absolutely. There's a question whether I buy something new and integrate, or for that, do I have to again buy a tool? You have an answer, absolutely what you're saying, and I know what your pain task is. You have purchased a product, somebody says I can integrate, but you need to buy that module so that the integration can happen. So this will continue in market, but yeah, we try to come as much as closer. Absolutely, absolutely. Correct, absolutely, absolutely. So maybe when you'll hear the solution in detail, those threads and bears we can discuss more. But your point is quite valid, and these are pain areas that. Yes. 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 So we identify vulnerability, we identify and tell you why we have identified and what is the measure to remediate.
So that recommendations and guidelines is something that we are providing, which can be done easily, like making IPS signature, enabling a firewall rule. So those kind of things is something that we are providing. So again, this is what Gartner talks about. So the approach that we discussed, and Gartner says that obviously by 2026, the organizations who will adapt this approach will have lesser chances of getting breached. So that is something coming from Gartner. So this is the slide which talks about the entire framework and the use cases that SkyBox does. So starting from below, as you can see, like what we can integrate with, right? So network infrastructure, firewall, IPS, CMDB. So we are a vendor agnostic platform. It's not like that we can only integrate with the 4-5 vendors, but we have more than 180 plus connectors and integrations with the industry leading vendors. So whether it is network and infrastructure, firewall, IPS, CMDBs, cloud, AWS, Azure, cloud security vendors like Zscaler, OT security scanners. We can also integrate with the likes of Clarity, Nozomi, these kind of scanners which are doing ICS SCADA vulnerability assessment, and IT vulnerability scanners and endpoint and XDR. So these are the different ingestion point of the platform where the SkyBox takes in information, and what kind of information it takes is like the config, the metadata, the policy data, right? The asset inventory, security control scans, vulnerability and threat data. So all of these different types of data it is taking from your different integrations, and using that, what are the different types of, we have again our threat intelligence service, as you can see on the left, 25 plus threat intel feeds, NIST, NVDs, so all of these something that we have collaborations with, right? And once we do that, the different types of use cases that we do is on the attack surface management, is the inventory, creating an inventory of your entire, whether it is IT, OT, hybrid, cloud, right? Running attack simulations, again, we can show you like how an internal attacker or a cloud attacker can come in, or a B2B attacker by running those simulations. The reason we run the simulations is to show you that which vulnerability can be easily targeted, and that is something that you need to mitigate first as a critical aspect. So that is what we called as ACT, or as per the CISA guidelines, that is those vulnerabilities is something that we need to act immediately because those are the critical vulnerabilities. And then visualization and reporting, that is obviously part of the platform. Vulnerability management, we do a multi-factor risk prioritization, as I said. So there are 4 aspects of doing the prioritization. The first is the CVSS, that is something that we get from the scanner. The second and the most important is the exposure, the attack simulation that we do. The third is the exploitability, that is the threat intelligence. And the fourth is the business asset criticality, which even Aftab showed, the 4 important aspects. That is where we are looking at to do the risk prioritization and vulnerability prioritization according to these 4 aspects. And we also give the remediation recommendation as said. Yeah. Yeah, so for cloud, we are doing something called rule compliance check, like the SGs, NSGs, the rules which are written on the SGs, NSGs, right? That we are looking at those rules and providing you with like whether those rules are properly written, because by default, the cloud has any kind of access which is open. So we are helping you to understand which rules need to be removed from the SGs, NSGs, or VPCs and the VNets on the clouds, the AWS, Azure, right? Another thing, the optimization and cleanup of the rules, the shadow rule, redundant rule, which are there on the cloud, is something that we are highlighting. And also the vulnerabilities that we get from the cloud, we help you to understand like how a vulnerability from on-prem to the cloud can be exploited. So that attack path analysis is something that we do for the cloud assets.
No, I was checking on the whether it protect the entire subscription, or can we just enable this for particular resource group, because there are a lot of product who are, I mean, we are forced to use that on entire subscription. But in case we want to have very granular support, like just for workload, we want to try this out. So does this provide that granular support as well, just for workload or just for resource group? not for entire subscription or not for entire tenant if we do not want to use.
Yeah, so you can do that. Licensing, you're talking about licensing, obviously, like you want to have a visibility onto only the tenants and not onto the SGs, like that is what you're saying, right?
No, actually in Azure, tenant work at highest level, right? And then we have subscription and then we have resource group. In case we want to, there are a lot of workload in our resource group. And I want to try this just for one resource group, leaving the other resource group as it is. So does this provide that support as well, just granular support on the particular resource group?
Yeah, we can do that. We can do the exclusions, okay? So once we do the integration, then we can remove those, what you're saying that from our, so we have something called scheduled tasks that we run to do the collection. So those kind of exclusions can be created and only specific criteria can be picked up for doing the analysis and analytics, that kind of.
Thank you.
Configuration and policy automation is also one of the things that we are doing on the security policy management, the multi-vendor firewall management in terms of, as we said, like rule review, config review, optimization cleanup. These are few of the use cases that we are doing on the firewall piece, right? Also, we do a network zoning and segmentation in terms of zone-to-zone access compliance called micro-segmentation, like how a traffic should be allowed from on-prem to the cloud or maybe from DMZ to internal. So those kind of visibility and those kind of policy checks can be created in terms of micro-segmentation also. Yeah.
Or do you also combine it with the overall architecture assessment and recommend something which may not be part of your tool?
Yeah, we can overall recommendation if you have your own infosec policy that can be
As
created.
or an overall architecture assessment, and then maybe something not there in your tool, but is there part of the model that overall architecture assessment also?
Yeah, we can do customization. So that is possible through customization of scripting.
No, I'm talking something different. See, talking about the overall architecture. Something is not there in my architecture, but it's not there in your solution also, in your product also. I'm talking about those pointers. So when I'm talking to you,
Like
overall,
I'm not able to understand, like not there in your architecture. Can you give an example?
suppose someone doing the like she said that for Azure, they are following NSGs and all, but don't have the gateway level firewall, right? Your solution doesn't provide that gateway level firewall on top of NSGs, but do you assess and then recommend that how it should be placed, where it should be placed, that type of recommendation?
So you're talking about something called model validation, like how?
Yeah, overall
Yes,
architecture.
yes, we do that. We do that. Even we tell you like.
That's why I said may not be part of your product capability.
Means you're talking about pinging that individually and giving, so creating a model is what Devjyoti is saying.
Could be
So we
or architecture
Yeah,
assessment.
so we
or
also have something called model booster, so which is an AI based algorithm which runs. So even if there are missing devices in my environment, which is something that you have missed out, I will also do the recommendation that these devices are there in your infrastructure, but they are not onboarded. Okay, they are missing, like as you said, like a gateway firewall, which is not there. So when I run that AI based algorithmic analysis, it will run the simulations within my environment and tell you that these are the connecting routers or connecting firewalls which is not there. So it calculates the missing hop also and gives those recommendations.
Another example could be that someone is going for WAF. WAF will protect from the external threat. What about the internal threat? Right. So these comes out of overall when someone, because it depends your SMEs, how they discuss, how they understand someone's architecture and how the deployment model. That's why I'm saying may not be part of your product capability, but overall understanding and then recommending things.
Yeah, it
as
is
a whole.
like a consultancy approach that you are saying
Correct,
in terms
correct,
of.
correct.
So we do that also. We have.
We have our professional services consulting team, which comes in play when we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
We do that consultancy also. Yeah. So this is how we integrate with the ecosystem, or just a pictorial representation, like SkyBox being the centralized platform, and then we can integrate with the likes of the firewall vendors. So we are not again vendor agnostic, and we can integrate with all the leading firewall vendors, the asset managements, the patch management tool, the vulnerability assessment tool, and then we have our own threat intel, right? So that we are ingesting into the platform. So the benefit that the SOC team gets is like continuous and automated risk analysis. As you can see, it's a continuous process, as said by Gartner. It is not a one-time activity, right? It needs to be done every week. That is what the recommendation come. This kind of analysis needs to be done every week. In fact, our platform does it every day. In a every 24 hours, it will do all of these automatically without any human intervention, and obviously the exposure from ransomware, malware, attack simulations to show how the attack path is changing in your infrastructure. Yeah, there is a question.
So does it integrate with the endpoints as well?
Yeah, so we integrate with the EDRs, XDRs, and
No, no, the computer endpoints, the user endpoints.
yeah, so we don't integrate with the endpoint, but we integrate with your endpoint antiviruses, okay, solutions to bring the data from the endpoint. Okay, that is how we do integration with the endpoints.
So this you have an integration with threat intelligence services as well. So
Yes.
how does that come into picture? While can I scan IOCs within my enterprise network?
So IOCs, we are only looking at the vulnerabilities. Okay, so when I say threat intel feed, so for example, if there is a vulnerability, so those how many of these vulnerabilities are associated with malwares, ransomwares, as it is shown in this slide, that ransomware, malwares, and real world threats. So that is only that we are looking from the threat intel, not the IOCs.
So the threat intel feed will only correlate the vulnerabilities with the malwares that is
Yes.
existing within that data.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you integrate custom threat feeds as well?
It depends. So what is that we have our open APIs. So if there is something that you are using in
The standard one, taxi or sticks.
taxi and sticks, we are currently not integrating. Okay, the taxi sticks is not there currently with us.
Okay. Thanks.
Immediate prioritization and remediation of imminent threats is something that we are doing. Again, exposures, configuration gaps. So when we say exposures, it is not only the misconfigurations but the vulnerability exposures. Direct, indirect path, and the high risk areas. So this is how we are looking at things by doing the integration of the ecosystem, right? And bringing on the data from different security vendors. So these are few differentiations that we do, since we have an extensive integration platform where we can integrate with on-prem, cloud, IT, OT. So whether it is Qualys, Tenable, Rapid7, we can integrate. We can again integrate with the OT vendors for manufacturing, as you can see, Nozomi, Clarity, Forescout, Tenable. Asset configuration management data, we can integrate with public cloud environment, containers, and EDR solutions. So that kind of integration depth and breadth is something that we are having in order to bring the configuration data across from your infrastructure, from whatever investments that you have made. Then this is how we run the simulation. I will also show this kind of simulation in my demo, like how we do that. So as you can see, we create a network map by integrating with your firewall, by integrating with your switches, routers, and taking the configurations and also taking the vulnerability data. Then we can show like how an attacker can come in and exploit that vulnerability. That is all done because we are able to ingest the configurations, the ACLs, the routings from your network devices and create a network map as we are showing. And using that network map, we can do the simulations to show the kind of exposures that can happen in your environment. This is one of the important aspects that we use, one of the important analytic capability that we have, algorithmic capability to do this kind of passive attack simulation to really show the vulnerabilities which can be easily targeted by the attacker. Remediation options that we provide, okay, so that is again one of the things. We are providing some intellectual remediation options in terms of what IPS signature can be enabled and disabled, what kind of rule modification can be done, what kind of segmentations can be done on your network side to remediate that vulnerability. Okay, until the patch is deployed, there are a lot of things that can be done quickly before the patch is deployed to reduce the time to react and time to remediate. So that is something that we provide in the remediation guidelines. Yeah.
For the OT environment, you are integrating with Nozomi and these things. So sometimes Okay, we are unable to patch those OT systems because of lot of dependencies will be there.
Yeah.
So same remediations means till the patch we apply. So will this provide the same?
Yes.
Thank you.
So we will provide those remediations also that can be used for your OT vulnerabilities in the recommendation.
I will decide which will be remediated. That's the first
OT like when we need to upgrade these things like takes so till that time. So does this platform provide me the suggestions like compensatory controls, what I need to, how I need to protect OT environment?
Yeah. So you are actually right because this makes a lot of sense in the OT because you cannot afford availability, downtime, and all those in OT, right? Making changes on your HMI, all of these devices is not possible in the plant. So that is where this platform plays an important role in terms of what IPS signatures can be enabled at the perimeter level, which can protect those vulnerabilities which are residing at your HMIs, right? So for example, it is shows a lot of value for OT environment because in IT still you can do afford downtime, but in OT really it is very difficult. I have seen like people don't patch because they cannot. Availability is something very important for them. It gives recommendations.
Just in continuation to the question, when you give the compensatory controls that needs to be remediated, now how does that reflect into vulnerabilities and its risk rating once that compensatory controls has been added? Because the vulnerability will stay in that database. Will my overall security posture will also get reduced in the score that you are giving it, or it will still be showing as is?
So in my platform, when we enable the IPS signature, for example, it will consider that IPS signature in the context-based prioritization. Okay, it will understand that okay, the IPS signature is enabled because when we are integrating with the NGFWs, the next generation firewalls, we are not only picking up the ACLs but the IPS signatures also, and we pick up the IPS signatures in whether they are in prevent mode, whether they are in detect mode. So we understand all of these from the NGFWs, right? And then we understand whether that IPS signature is in prevent mode or detect mode. If it is in prevent mode, we don't put that particular vulnerability in a critical phase because we know that some compensating control is already implemented at the perimeter level.
Yeah, but there could be some compensatory controls that would not have that feasibility. That would just be on the segmentation based, and you will still not get that data to particularly analyze whether it is now under critical or a high or a medium based on whatever criticality mechanism we have put in place. Now, how do we cater those? Because a lot of um, organizations have now the problem is I have thousands of vulnerabilities which have a compensatory controls but that are not detected by the tools. Now manually identifying those and then putting into remediation and then reducing the overall risks becomes a problem for a lot of organizations.
So we are, see again, we are not implementing any changes onto the tools, into your endpoints, onto the firewalls. So when you see SkyBox dashboard, SkyBox will give you the true picture. It will not, it will not tell you, okay, what is going to happen tomorrow. It will tell you the current picture, and also it will tell you by enabling this IPS signature what can happen, how many vulnerabilities will reduce, how many critical vulnerabilities will reduce. Now if you implement that manually, that is something that you have to do manually. We will not enable that IPS signature or maybe that configuration change on the firewall ACL. But once you do that, that score will change in the dashboard. Okay, that 30 critical vulnerabilities will now be shown as protected, not remediated, but protected, because we have certain categories like exposed, indirectly exposed, protected, remediated. So it will come under the protected segment because it will understand some kind of control is there, right? That is already implemented for those 40 critical vulnerabilities that were there 10 days back. So it does the found versus fixed analysis also. Like these were the vulnerabilities that you saw 15 days back. You have now implemented certain controls and now they have been protected. And how many of them have been remediated. So that kind of entire workflow you can create on the SkyBox system.
Feel free to meet us. We have a booth.
Yeah.
I know time is short, but we do want to answer.
Yeah, we can have a detailed discussion on that.
We have a booth. We'll display that. Thanks so much.
So this is one of the example from one of our customers having nearly 30,000 assets, that when we did this, what happened. So as you can see, like you can see the number of vulnerabilities that we got from the scanner. Okay, so these were the total number of vulnerabilities that we were getting from the scanner. They were using a Qualys scanner. And when we put this vulnerability data into our model, where we did all of the exercises of attack simulation and all of this, we found out that CVSS, which is again something scanner already does, they were giving nearly 4,20,000 as high and critical as per the CVSS scoring, right? Then what SkyBox did, we used our threat intel, okay, that we have the NIST, NVDs, the dark web intelligence, and we found out like out of all of these 1,65,000 are having some active exploits. There are malwares, there are ransomwares which are associated. There are payloads which are already created for this particular 1,65,000 vulnerabilities. And then we did an asset classification in terms of which asset is important. So you can also do those kind of classification of your asset in terms of which is important to your business, and we found out like there are 2,85,000 vulnerabilities which belong to high and critical important assets. And the most important thing, when we did the attack simulation to show like which vulnerabilities can be directly accessed by an internet attacker from the internet, we found out like there was 75,000 exposed vulnerability only. And when we did a mean of all of these, we found out like it was only 1,500 exposures which were there, which were common to the severity, exposure, exploitability, importance. Actually, there were a lot of vulnerabilities which we even saw, which was giving as low and medium by the scanners, but SkyBox was telling them as critical because they were directly having exposure from the internet. They are a low-hanging fruit. They may be low or medium in terms of CVSS, but it also depends upon the network context, that how easily those can be accessed from the internet. And that is how we reduce the risk 1,000-fold. You can understand from a number of 4,20,000 to this. So obviously there was a huge reduction of the risk, and that is how we do the context-based prioritization. That is the most important. Understanding the network context is something that SkyBox does in order to prioritize the vulnerability. Yeah, so what we do in brief, in very short, like we need to integrate with your firewall, switches, firewalls and the layer 3 devices, okay, that is to start with. And we need to have your scan data. So you must be having some scanner for doing vulnerability scanning. So we need to have that scan data. Okay, so once we have your firewalls and layer 3 devices integrated to SkyBox, we create a model, we create a map of your environment, right? And then we take the vulnerability data from your scanners, and then we do the correlation to show that how many of those vulnerabilities are really the one that matters for you. Minimum, this is the minimum that you need to, because if you are not able to create a network topology or network map, obviously we will not be able to do the attack simulation for you. Okay, so that is something that we need to integrate your firewalls, we need to integrate your layer 3 devices to understand the network flow, that how the traffic is flowing from one part of your network to another part of your network. Because if we are not able to understand that, we cannot do the attack simulation, the attack path analysis. This is the prerequisite. Yes, yes. These are all out of the box integrations. So we don't have to do any customization for integrations. These are all out of the box integrations that are happening, and we can integrate on the fly. So by providing only one endpoint, you are like you are providing me limited. No, so we are not doing it from the endpoint, we are doing it from the network level. So because in order to understand the network path, right? So we need to integrate all of these devices. We need to understand the rules, we need to understand the routing rules of your firewall network, right? If we don't understand that, then sitting from the endpoint will not give me that visibility to understand like where I have to go if I don't have that intelligence of your network. Yeah, not a report. It is a integration that we require from the vulnerability scanner. It can be a scan data that you can provide us, XML scan data from the scanners. Usually the scanners provide you output in XML format, the scan data format. So you can even provide. Yeah, you absolutely, absolutely. You are actually absolutely. So it's the risk, the identifying. So zero day vulnerability is like if we have this threat intel feed. So there is a 40 people researcher who are doing this analysis of the vulnerabilities. So for example, if there is no patch released, so we are providing with something called compensating control, like an IPS signature. Usually the IPS vendors and all of these come up with very quickly they come up with IPS signature. Or maybe if there is a vulnerability, for example, WannaCry, it was targeted using the port 445. So we will tell you that please block the port 445 at your perimeter level at these 5 firewalls. So that particular vulnerability until the patch is released, okay, that is protected. We are not saying that you don't have to deploy the patch, but what we are saying that how fast you can react to that vulnerability which is there, which does not have a patch release from the original OEM manufacturer, we can provide you with compensating control. That is one way how we are helping to look at the zero-day vulnerabilities and shield you from them. These are some of the benefits that we are providing in terms of exposure management. We obviously have discussed all of these. This is just a summary. Like, look, providing greater insights, helping to make smarter decisions, building resilience and maximizing resources. So this is just the benefits that we are providing using the platform and overview of it. So I'll quickly show you few things on the 5-10 minutes. I will show you the attack simulation and the solution, because that is something that will help you to understand our platform. So this is the SkyBox platform to which I'm logging in. So I'll go to the vulnerability control, and can you check? Yeah. Yeah. So this is the vulnerability control. So now you can see, like, this is something called the threat centric. So these are some of my dashboards, like MITRE framework. So when we do the integration with the scanner, when we do the integration with your firewall switches, routers, we ingest the vulnerabilities, okay, and then we can put it onto different kind of frameworks. Like one of this is the MITRE framework, and the reason why we can do is that because we can create this network map that I'm showing you. So this is the kind of map we create by integrating your firewall switches, routers, and this is the main engine on which we do the attack simulation, because we understand that how the traffic will now flow from, for example, this part of your network to this part of your network. So until and unless we don't have this intelligence of the network, we will not be able to run the passive attack simulations. So this is internally what we are creating, a network map, right? And on basis of that, we create the data and do these analytics like a MITRE framework, okay? Then we do the prioritization of the vulnerabilities. So now, for example, let me show you the exposed and the exploit vulnerabilities. So these are the exposed and exploitable vulnerabilities that I am getting from the infrastructure. Okay, so out of so many number of vulnerabilities, these are exposed, these are exploitable. So this is how we are narrowing down. So these are all the dashboards. So these are the exposed and exploitable OS names. So you can create all of these filters, widgets. These are totally customizable. But the most important thing is that when we are saying that a particular vulnerability is exposed and exploitable, so these are the exposed and exploitable vulnerability. How we say that is something. This is the attack simulation that we run. We can create threat origins, okay? That is inside threat, cloud threat, internet attacker, B2B attacker. So these are the different types of attacker profile that we can create within the SkyBox environment and run the simulation. The reason we can do this because we understand your network. We understand how the traffic is flowing from one part of your network to another part of your network. So now let me take the internet attacker, and if there is an exposure, it will tell me over here. So it takes the port, it takes the source and destination automatically, and it runs this simulation and tells me, okay, there is a full access from the internet to this particular asset which has an active vulnerability which can be exploited. Now when it says that, and this is the kind of granular access detail that we provide, the network path analysis we do. So this is the attack path, okay? So now this is something that we do because we are able to model the network. If you are not able to model the network, we will not be able to show this part from the internet to this firewall and then to the asset which has an active vulnerability already residing, okay? From the map also, this is the attack path that the attacker can take. This is the attacker who is sitting at the internet. We can locate, position those attackers from here, and then this is the path that the attacker can take, and there are rules which are allowed, there are ACLs which are allowed, there are routing rules which are available. That is the reason that SkyBox is saying that this particular vulnerability is a low-hanging fruit for the attacker, and it can be easily picked up by the attacker from the internet. So this is how we are running the attack simulation, and this is one of the important aspects that we use to do the vulnerability prioritization in SkyBox. Another important thing that I wanted to show, the last one, because we are already running short of time. is the solutioning that we do. So, as I said, like the remediation guidelines that we provide. So these are all of the guidelines in terms of patch. Now, the types of guidelines that we give, as you can see here. So the patch, mitigated by IPS, upgrade, workaround, config change. So these are the guidance that we provide for zero-day vulnerabilities, as you were saying. So for example, if there is an IPS signature that has been released, so I can, from here I can see, okay, and apply, and it says me, okay, just by enabling Palo Alto IPS signature number, it will also tell me the signature number, like 36815, I can remediate 323 vulnerabilities in my environment. So that kind of granular information it provides, that what has to be done. It will not only tell you the IPS signature, but it will also give you the details of the IPS signature. Similarly, if I take for a workaround from here, like a config change if that needs to be done, so it will provide me like workaround is enabling IPsec. Okay, it will provide me all the details. It will also give me external links so that I can refer if required, how it needs to be done. So that kind of enriched information, actionable intelligence is something that is provided. So this is the actionable intelligence that we are providing in order to work with the vulnerabilities which are released. It can be a zero-day one which does not have active patch, but this config changes, the IPS signatures, the workarounds which we have as remediation guidelines is something that we provide so that you can immediately take action, and that is how you can reduce the time to react and time to remediate from the vulnerabilities, because that is the only way that we can counteract with the adversaries, by acting quickly and taking this actionable intelligence that we are providing. So that's all from my side. Thank you. Over to you, Aftab.
Thank you. Dev Jyoti has given a wider, thak gaye, tired, hearing technology. Please.
Real-time data.
The real data,
So you
but
are storing that data also for that entity, and for how long are you storing that?
It depends. Like we can store it for a year also. It depends upon your wish. We can configure all of this.
So then you are having an SLA with that entity for storing that data and how you will be using it.
okay.
No, it is an on-prem solution. So your data is stored within your environment. So it is the scan data that we are storing. It is like an SIM that stores your logs on-prem. So
It's in your own
obviously
environment.
the SIM doesn't have an SLA with a firewall vendor to store the syslog data and all those things. So we store it on-prem for you, right? So that is how we are doing it.
Good. Answers? We do our own massaging, so.
We do our own. So all of these recommendations and guidance that we provide is our own intelligence that we do every day.
That's our own
We
private.
have a team of 40 to 50
Proprietary.
researchers who are doing this and providing this intelligence every day.
Well, these questions come us, but yeah, we are doing it.
So it takes usually 24 hours. Every 24 hours we can do this. So that is the minimum.
How secure is the data with you? See, if I am sharing my vulnerability scan with you, if that data leaks, so even if the attackers are not aware about my vulnerabilities, they get it on their platter.
That is it.
I need to be sure that if I am handing over the keys to my house, to check whether there are any windows open, that data doesn't leak ahead.
So it's an on-prem installation first of all. The data will be at your data center. We are not taking the data away from you.
You are taking the scans,
No, it
taking
will,
the complete logs.
yeah, but it will be at your place because the server will be hosted at your data center.
So you are not transferring the data to your server.
No. That massaging is not happening. So I understood what you are saying. No, so the reports. One second. Sorry. Your own. Yeah. No. The one which we are talking today is purely on-prem. Okay. Now where all the scanners are done by you, your data is yours, the reporting, dashboarding, everything is within your. You have an operation team who is doing it. We are not pulling it in our cloud to do any kind of massaging on those data. Is what I'm trying to say. Go ahead.
Basically bringing your software or whatever
We deploy it on your environment.
deploy it in our environment,
Yes.
giving us the assessment,
Everything too. You do it, you handle.
carrying it back.
I don't carry. I don't even know. I don't have a plug-in, not a single wire. That's how an on-prem. Otherwise, we are working in financial industry. It does not. Absolutely, you got your point. You're spot on this. Okay, we'll quickly move. Not much time. I don't want other
If you have any
presentations.
questions, please join me in the booth. I will be happy to answer
Yeah.
your questions because now we are running short of time. Sorry for that, but please come to the booth and I will be happy to answer your questions.
I mean, I'm really glad that we had an interactive session. Just want to close with certain remarks, and an idea is very simple. We have learned many things out of university and put to practice. I'm just giving you a glimpse of one of our customers who have used this, and some of the challenges, and like a typical case study without naming, because we don't want to do that. We do have their approval at least to show it like this, so it's there on our website too. This is a global customer, around 40,000 plus employees. I mean, it's improving day by day. They're into all the important verticals that you can see, and global as well as prominent presence in India. These were the challenges. Attack surface visibility was poor. It wasn't up to the mark. Vulnerability prioritization and remediation was on top of their mind, and their objective was clearly to reduce time to remediation. This is something very, very highly objectivized and told that this is what we want to do. Goal was to drive automation and effective vulnerability prioritization, and in customer words, we wanted a single vendor who can help us attain effective vulnerability and policy management. The ground level difficulties were a huge scale of operation, complex layers of securities, attack surface visibility. Solution should coexist. This is which I was trying to say, that we are vendor agnostic. Solution should coexist with work with existing install base in multi-brands of firewall and scanners and even network switches, etc. There were some critical assets which are about 8,000 identified, while they had more, which they wanted to assess. And vulnerabilities, when they were scanning on a weekly basis, they were getting about 130,000 vulnerabilities, and time to remediate, and there were missed SLAs. Now, somebody asked and somebody answered that question, what are those products? These are a typical two core products that forms our continuous exposure management platform. The first module is security policy management. It has three core products, which is firewall assurance, network assurance, and change manager. And the vulnerability control is something that is all doing that magic, bringing all data in one place and treating it with the contextual thought processes and giving you the vulnerabilities and remediations. So this is how we achieve, and these are the core products, and thanks for highlighting that, and more or less you have understood this. And of course, post implementation, these were the improvements and improved visibility of complete attack surface. Why I have written reprioritization is because prioritization is done by most of the OEMs on their own assets. Since we cover larger subject, we can easily reprioritize and bring that vulnerability, which they would have called 10% to another 3% or something. So we do that massaging something, which is really important, and reduce time to remediation, as Dave was talking on that. Rule compliance, configuration compliance, zero touch automation, network modeling, and attack simulation. Attack simulation was loved by them, and that was one of the reasons the CISO said that we require this product, because when it is an eye opener, and not many places you will find this clubbing into a smaller solution, complex one, but nice. Lastly, whatever you have heard, your team from SkyBox, 2002, this came up. If you can notice the network modeling, we started in 2002, while it was not given a shape in such that they are hearing it now. But after we started hearing that what Gartner was doing, we started analyzing ourselves, and in Gartner's document also, where they're talking about CTM, there is some reference of SkyBox, which means the modular approach that we follow, the 4 processes, principles, we're doing this. As we progressed, we have more products in our hand. 2023, we launched this continuous exposure management platform, which covers our core product. And of course, headquartered in San Jose, we have people in India at 3 locations, Mumbai, Bangalore, Delhi. We keep running around to meet people. We love to meet people. This is our booth. I know there are a lot of questions. Please feel free to open up when you're meeting us there. There are some tokens of prizes and scratch cards, etc. We'll love to meet whenever you're there. I hope you have enjoyed this session. While we have 90 minutes, I didn't want to kind of bore you with loads of presentation. We tried to keep it lighter. I hope you didn't get bored and not tired. Thank you so much for your time, and I do appreciate your time coming here. It was a wonderful session, and I like the interaction coming. We would want to continue. Please visit us when you're getting time to on our store. Okay, thank you so much for this.